I hope you all can hear us out there. But as I said, school is out tomorrow. You can let the kids know. Probably won't be in until maybe Thursday, I think, the next couple of days, because nobody can drive on ice. I don't care who you think you are, but you can't drive on ice. It is a very dangerous situation out there. Be very, very careful. So there are many ways to get this radio broadcast. Of course, the first way is right now live on 91.7 on your FM dial. That's WYXR. You can also pick us up on the YXR app. We are also available live on the TuneIn app. Put WYXR in the search and hit play, and you'll be able to hear us, as well as we are on Facebook Live. And when the show is posted tomorrow, you can find us on YouTube. And as we are a podcast, you can catch us wherever it is you get your podcast. Very, very, very good. We have a very busy show for you tonight, and a lot to talk about, a lot going on. Of course, our guest this evening, we have three outstanding guests. We'll be talking with Doug McGowen in just a few minutes. Doug is the president and CEO of MLGW, and full disclosure, when I reached out to him initially to be a guest, it was just to talk a little bit about the transition and coming into things. As soon as he got here, of course, we had that last ice storm just about a month or so ago with rolling blackouts in the whole 9 yards, and so now we have another ice storm headed our way, so we'll talk to them about the preps and situations in reference to what MLGW is suggesting for all of us. A little bit later on in the show, we will be speaking with Keith Norman. He is the senior pastor of First Baptist Church Broad. And, of course, in the wake of the release of the video of Tyreek Nichols, he was on TV quite a bit this weekend offering his perspective and analysis, and we will get that from him as well in just a few minutes. There have been some updates on that case. I'll bring you up to snuff in just a minute or two. And in the second half hour of the show, we are going to pay tribute to yet another radio broadcasting legend in his town. Her name is Tracy Bethea, and she's going to join us to talk about her career and, of course, a brand new challenge that she had been offered by the folks at iHeartRadio, and it's all kind of in memory of her radio mentor. So we'll get all into that in just a few minutes, but first things first, before we start, many of you celebrated a birthday today. You may have had one over the weekend or have one coming up. This is the time of the broadcast when we shout you out. So without further ado, we can't do it unless I say, hit it, Bren. Celebrating birthdays on this 30th day of January 2023. Happy birthday is going out to Josephine Faulkner. Robert Williams is celebrating his birthday today, as in Kimberly Cornett. Christopher Barnes. Sheba Potts Wright celebrating today. Happy birthday to Fred Cunningham. Leon Seals from Jackson, Mississippi. Denise Beal and Diane Boyd Stamps. So to each and every one of you, I hope that your day was filled with fun and laughter, and that you were celebrating the way one should. And hopefully, if we're back here next year, we will be here to celebrate your next trip around the sun. Happy birthday, each and every one. Thank you, Bren. All right, so the only news I'm going to discuss in this particular segment has to do with Tyreek Nichols and his tragic murder at the hands of some Memphis police officers. Of course, the release of the video occurred last Friday evening, and I don't know how many of you saw it. I did happen to see it, and it was just as bad as we had heard about beforehand. As you know, 5 police officers were suspended, eventually arrested, and eventually charged with his death. The most serious charge of all of them, of course, is second-degree murder. And now we are starting to hear a little bit more about, as this investigation continues on, we'll offer my kudos to Chief C.J. Davis and D.A. Mulroy for the quick work in terms of this investigation. Chief Davis saw the video and made quick moves for an in-house administrative, investigation in terms of that. Deemed that, yes, indeed, there were some issues that had happened that were highly irregular, and they were fired. And on the back of them being fired, they were then charged by D.A. Mulroy, 5 of them, of course. And as it stands now, there are more individuals. In the last hour, we found out that 3 EMTs from the fire department, we had heard that they responded and that there was an investigation. Those folks had been suspended from duty until the results of the investigation. Well, 3 of them, Robert Long, Jamichael Sandrich, and Lieutenant Michelle Whitaker, were all terminated from the Memphis Fire Department this afternoon in reference to their role in this particular case. In terms of the aid that was rendered, the charge was failure to conduct an adequate assessment. So they are no longer on the force. We did hear earlier today that yet another officer has not been fired, but he is under investigation and he's relieved of duty. His name is Preston Hemphill. He is a 5-year officer with the police department. He was at the scene that evening when Tyree was first pulled over. He was one of the officers that responded to that scene. He's the man that pulled out the taser and tried to tase Tyree Nichols as he ran off. He didn't know what was going on out there that night, and he was also made, you could hear him very clearly on the tape make a very derogatory statement about what he thought should happen to Tyree as the police were pursuing him. So he's been relieved of duty. He is a white officer, and so now this starts to make us wonder about exactly some of the reasoning for this. He was suspended with the rest of the 5 officers, initially when they were all suspended. But we never knew his name. We never knew who he was until today. Then they released that information. He is still employed with the Memphis Police Department. We will see how all of this unfolds. And within the last 30 minutes, we now understand that there is a 7th officer that has also been suspended, and he's on leave as well in terms of this investigation. I guarantee you there will be many, many more, because if you did see the video, you saw that there were several officers on the scene, including 2 Shelby County Sheriff's deputies who are now under internal investigation and been put on leave by Sheriff Bonner because why were they even there? Apparently he didn't know they were there, and I don't know if they didn't call dispatch, who knew they were there, why they were there, why they showed up in the first place. So that is going to be another investigation. So again, as D.A. Mulroy has stated, this is still an active and ongoing investigation. And there will be a lot more to this as time moves along. All of these officers will be back in court on February 17th. 2 of the 5 have retained attorneys and plan to plead not guilty in all of this. So this has just really been a terrible time for all of us. The world is watching what is happening in Memphis. And one thing I will say in terms of the conduct of our citizens here, you have the absolute right to protest, and I mean, without question. But the conduct showed from our people out there on the streets, nonviolence. The family did not want violence to be attached to this, even though their son was killed in a very violent manner. They wanted this to be a peaceful protest, and as of this point this evening, it has been. All of the marches, all of the protests have been peaceful in nature, and God bless each and every one of us who is outraged by all of this. And I will say I'm one of those people, but you know how to handle these things in the appropriate way, and so we're very, very thankful for that. Earlier today, the parents of Tyree Nichols were invited by the White House to attend the State of the Union address, which will be held in Washington, D.C. Next month by the president. So, again, all of us are shocked and saddened by what we saw and what we know now that happened. I will say that the funeral, in case you hadn't heard, is Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. He will be eulogized by the Reverend Al Sharpton. So once again, a lot going on here. This is an ongoing investigation, and we're going to continue to monitor it. We're going to keep you updated with the latest information. We're going to get into our broadcast now, and we'll take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we are going to talk to the president and CEO of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. His name is Doug McGowen. And when I reached out to him initially, I did not know about this ice storm, but we know about it now. So we'll talk to him about that and some of the preps that they will be taking the next couple of days. This is Real Talk Memphis. I'm sorry. This is Real Talk Memphis. I am Chip. We'll take our first break, and we'll be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
WYXR is supported by the Onstage at the Halloran Center Music and Theater Series, presenting an evening with Don Bryant and the Bo Keys on Friday, February 10th. Memphis soul man Don Bryant was a solo artist at High Records during the label's 1970s heyday. However, many didn't discover his talent until the release of his 2017 album, Don't Give Up on Love, his first soul album in 48 years. More information at orpheum-memphis.com.
So many times by love before.
WYXR is supported by the Onstage at the Halloran Center 2022-2023 season, which continues in downtown Memphis. Experience live entertainment with music, magic, and more, including the return of Orchestra Unplugged and the Songwriter Series events. More information and the full lineup at orpheum-memphis.com/onstage.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
And welcome back to Real Talk on this chilly Monday evening in the city. Chip here with you. I'm very happy to have my first guest with us. He is the new president and CEO of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, and he is Mr. Doug McGowen. And Doug, once again, welcome to Real Talk Memphis. Very happy to have you on the show tonight.
Thanks, Chip. Glad to be with you.
I know that it is a very busy time for you, as it has been ever since you took that chair. We are expecting some wintry precipitation anytime now for the next couple of days. And when I reached out to you initially, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your transition and how things were going, especially after that last ice storm. But now we're faced with another one. So you all getting prepped and ready to go for the next couple of days here?
Yeah, we are, Chip. And unlike the last storm, this is a little different. This is some frozen precipitation, or the worst thing is freezing rain, and that is snow that melts and then it stays melted until it hits the ground and then freezes again. That's what causes the ice accumulation. Mm-hmm. You know, the last storm we had really wasn't much precipitation. It was just extremely cold temperatures and some winds that precipitated the power outages and then the water crisis that followed. So we're about as prepared as we can be tonight. We have a whole bunch of crews on standby, tree cutting crews. And we'll be ready to respond if there are any power outages.
What's your biggest concern? You mentioned the trees, of course, the branches and things like that. Is that probably one of the main concerns that you're looking at in terms of what may happen?
Sure. As far as things that we're responsible for here at Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, anytime freezing rain comes down, it will cause an accumulation of ice. Any accumulation of ice will add weight, especially to brittle tree branches. The more, I've read a statistic that said freezing rain can add up to 30 times the weight on a tree branch. They're already pretty heavy.
Yeah.
That additional weight they can't support. That means the branches or the trees might come down. They could affect the power lines. If there's enough freezing rain, it could actually add, 500 or 600 pounds to the actual power lines, causing them to come down. So if it stays about a quarter inch or under, we should see minimal amounts of power outages and damage. But if it gets above a quarter of an inch of accumulation, that's when you start to see some more widespread outages and some trees coming down.
So I want to go back, of course, about a month or so ago, as you sort of alluded to, that last storm that we had where it was just extraordinarily cold. And we saw something in this city and maybe throughout the state, courtesy of TVA, that I don't think anybody's ever seen, and that was rolling blackouts. I don't think that, and I think a lot of folks will be in agreement that was handled very well. Not of course, not by you all, but by TVA in terms of that. Had you ever even seen or heard of a rolling blackout situation here in Tennessee?
No, not here in Tennessee. That's the first time that's happened in the last 90 years. I think we're all fortunate to have that history. I've lived all over the country and all over the world. I spent 3 tours when I was in the Navy in California, and rolling blackouts were a normal way of life. And that's certainly not something we want to get into here. So it was very rare. It was caused by the very, very deep cold temperatures that were across a broad area of the South. It caused electrical demand to go very high in other areas where they don't have as much natural gas heat. They have a lot more electric heat. And when it gets really cold, that causes the electric demand to go way up. At the same time, the wind and the precipitation that we did have caused some failures in electrical generation. It basically froze some sensors on those coal-fired, natural gas-fired plants, and it shut those plants down. So it really was 2 things. A, TVA couldn't generate enough power because it lost some generators. B, the demand went sky high. And then the last thing was TVA was not able to buy any power to import because the folks at Duke Energy and PJM, which are our neighbors, they had problems of their own. They didn't have any extra power because they were going through exactly the same thing. So it was really a perfect storm. We hope we never have to do that again, but you can bet we'll be better prepared if and when it ever happens again.
If you're just joining us, we are speaking with the president and CEO of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. He is Doug McGowen. And Doug, I know that coming into, as you came into the company, there were a lot of things that you wanted to work on. We've always had an issue with our infrastructure and a lot of things like that. As you start to move forward in this process, what are some of your priorities in terms of not only customer service, but just the whole function of MLGW as a whole?
Right. Well, 3 exciting things. Number one, the first priority I have is I told our folks that we have to earn our customers' business. That might sound funny because we know that people generally don't have a choice, but we ought to act like our customers have a choice and earn the business. That means a lot of things, from improving customer service to improving the reliability of the infrastructure that we do have. So that's the first and foremost for me. And the way that we operationalize that is I ask our team to think about 2 things when they come in the morning. Number one, what can I do to make it easier or better for a customer today? And what can I do to make it easier or better for a colleague today? Because we need to support each other in this work. So I think that'll start moving us towards that better customer service. The second priority I have is to really accelerate that infrastructure investment. As you know, they had a way forward plan that was supposed to be a 5-year plan. It's now going to be about 7 because of the 2-year impact of COVID.
Sure.
It really impacted workforce. In other words, we couldn't get the contractors we needed, and it impacted the supply chain. We couldn't get the parts we needed. Some of that's easing up a little bit, so we're going to double down and we're going to reinvest. What that really means is we're focusing a lot on electric reliability, especially in those problem areas where you have very old infrastructure, a lot of tree canopy. We'll be doing a lot of work there. The third piece was I know that many people complain all the time about the number of street lights that are out and it's still too dark. So a 2-prong approach. Number one, we're going to have a small team to help reduce that number of street light outages. But I'm pleased to say that we are converting all of the lights, street lights in the city of Memphis to LED street lights. And that will happen this year. We're already underway.
Okay.
Will happen this year. for everyone. And then we have in our surrounding communities and the other municipalities a desire from their mayors to potentially look at those LEDs. So we want to immediately engage with them to see how we can help them make a change for LED streetlights in their community as well. So I think people will see a very real, dramatic difference. The LEDs are much brighter. They make the environment seem much safer because it's much closer to daylight than it is to dark.
Well, that's excellent news for everybody concerned. Let me ask you about something that has been kind of a debate for a long time now about power poles and maybe the need for putting a lot of those cables and things underground.
Sure.
What's your take on that? And I mean, is that something that you all might be looking at, or exactly, where are you with that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. About 40% of our infrastructure is underground and about 60% is overhead. So in the older parts of the city, you'll see that there is much more overhead. That's the power lines on power poles. And as you go further out east, as our city grew outward, when those new subdivisions were built in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they put a lot of the infrastructure underground. So, but it's a choice. Underground utilities are not a panacea. They don't fix everything because, contrary to popular belief, underground cables do degrade over time and do need to be replaced over time. Now, certainly they're not subject to the same impacts from wind and snow, but water and corrosion are problems. And so they do need to be replaced from time to time. It is incredibly expensive to bury what's overhead underground. And so it's really just a trade-off of having the most reliable electrical power that we can for the rate that we're asking people to pay. And that's always a balance.
Sure.
If we were to underground everything, everybody's going to pay a significantly higher electrical bill. But we think with the way forward plan, it's a really good balance. Whether your power supply is underground or overhead, you shouldn't have to think about that. We should just get the power to you reliably. I will need some help, though. I talked about the wonderful tree canopy we have in Memphis with those overhead power lines, and where the trees are very close to it. Unfortunately, we do have to cut back some of those trees so that they don't interact with the power lines. And nobody likes to have the tree in their front yard cut. The good news is if we do cut it, your reliability will go up. And the second thing is trees will grow back.
There you go.
So we can get more trees there, but we're going to ask for some folks' help because we want to make sure you don't have to think about reliable power.
Well, Doug, I've known you for a while now. We worked together during the COVID-19, and they got the right one in place over there. I worked at MLGW for 4+ years, so I know how the process goes. But listen, congratulations, on assuming the position, and I think we're in really good hands. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to join me tonight and join our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chip, and thanks to all your listeners. Everybody be safe, and if you don't have to drive, don't do so.
Absolutely. Very good words. Thank you. Doug McGowen, ladies and gentlemen, he is the president and CEO of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, and he joined us to talk about some of his plans as they continue to move forward in terms of improving technology and a lot of other things in terms of more reliable electrical sources and everything else that we need here. He's all about reliability and trust, and we need to trust MLGW, and we thank him for coming on the show. We're going to take our next break, and when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about the Tyree Nichols case with Pastor Keith Norman. This is Real Talk Memphis for a chilly Monday evening. I'm Chip. A quick break, and we'll be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
WYXR is supported by the Germantown Performing Arts Center, presenting Nico Case on Saturday, February 4th. Nico Case is on tour in support of her newest album, Wild Creatures, which pulls together high points of feral joy from 21 years of solo work. The performance will include an opening set by Indigo Spark. More information at gpacweb.com.
Are you interested in sponsoring the show and want to support WYXR at the same time? To find out how, email us at sponsorships@wyxr.org.
Like what you're hearing? WYXR is a listener-supported station. Help keep the sound of Memphis alive by donating at wyxr.org.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
And welcome back to Real Talk Memphis on this Monday evening. And we started the show by talking about Tyree Nichols, and I've dedicated this program to him tonight. We have heard a lot of voices from a lot of different folks, in our region. It's been all over national news. It's international news as well. And one of the voices that we heard, and one of the people who has been in the middle of this in reference to speaking with our city officials and even our law enforcement officials, is a voice that many of us know and respect in our city. Please welcome to Real Talk Memphis, Keith Norman, Senior Pastor, First Baptist Church Broad. And Pastor Keith, it's great to see you again, my friend.
Chip, it's always good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And this particular situation that has placed our city on the map is not something that any of us can be proud of. As I stated, you have spoken with the city officials and some of the law enforcement officials, and you did some fine commentary on several of the news outlets over the weekend. I guess my first question to you is how do you assess all this in terms of what happened, and how did it make you feel?
First of all, it was a terrible travesty of justice of any kind. My heart went out immediately to the family once I learned about this. This should have never happened under any circumstances. There's no excuse for it, no reason for it to happen. However, when these kinds of things happen, it's the response to it that determines so much of how other people will either trust and move forward or reject what happens that comes out of it. So once the Nichols family began to speak about it and how they wanted to see us move, we began to follow their lead. They were a peaceful family. They are kind people. They have really done a wonderful job leading our city with the tone of what they wanted to see as a response. But it then required the proper response from law enforcement and from government, and then the right response and support from community to make sure that we did what we were supposed to do to undergird this family. I think those things began to happen early on, and it was the timeliness that made it okay and made it palpable. But once the video was released, more questions began to arise, and now we've got to step back up to the plate. And this transparency pathway that we've taken, we cannot, abort that right now. We got to continue to walk forward. We have to continue to give forth information and not make the public pry and investigate for information. It needs to be released and it needs to be uncovered.
Many people around here, around the city, and even around the country are praising Chief Davis and DA Mulroy for the rather swift action that was taken. She suspended these officers in the midst of an internal investigation, later fired all of these officers. And of course, DA Mulroy came back with some pretty substantial charges in reference to this before the video came out. There has been conversation about maybe this being a template for how these types of investigations can be done, moving forward nationwide. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Definitely. This is how it should be done. Most certainly, it should come forth in a very timely manner. Even scripture supports that. Ecclesiastes 8 and 11 says something very profound. When the sentence against an evil matter is not executed speedily, people take it within their own hands to do what they feel like is right. And so they gave us the information. Now, let me say this. Once they did what I would like to refer to as their due diligence and their jobs, they have to also be careful not to subvert justice or allow for something to happen by doing too much or saying too much. So they did time it very well. Chief Davis did time it very well. She terminated the officers, and then she stood down to let the DA come forth and say, now I'm going to press charges. That process took its natural course. Now it's time to take all of those secondary steps, things that we know, like the other officers who were involved. It's time for them to face charges. It's time for their faces to be put forth as well. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to know who was there and what role they played, and then to say, let justice run its course in their life as well. No matter who they're connected to, race, creed, or color doesn't matter. Transparency has to still follow the pattern and the pathway.
So, having said what you said, of course, we got some more news today. Earlier today, we found out that, a white officer was at the scene, and he's been relieved of duty ever since this whole episode started. But kind of going back to what you said, we just found out about who he was today. And then later on this evening, we heard that there was a seventh officer, as yet unnamed, that has been relieved of duty, and that 3 EMTs who we knew about that night were terminated this afternoon as well. So does it bother you in terms of the timing of this? I think it goes back to what you were saying initially. Everything has to be done, in a certain way, but we don't want trickles. I mean, there were more officers at the scene standing around. There was a lot of, we saw it in the video, so there's no denying it. So does it bother you that the events of today in particular in terms of a timing perspective?
So, Chip, they don't bother me per se, and I want to deal with two things when we deal with this. Number one, it's clear that there were 5 officers who enacted the violence which took the life of Tyree Nichols.
Yes.
So those 5 officers had to be dealt with in their own bucket. If you try to pile everybody into the same swath and say, we're going to get everybody, it's going to be very hard for the DA to sort the charges out and to bring justice. So he brought justice towards those individuals whom actually had a hand in killing Tyree Nichols. Mm-hmm. So that was the first batch. Then the people who failed to respond, we need to deal with that. And the officers who were there who failed to report and then may have incited or raised the level of tension by the words that they said and the approach that they did, the violation of policy. We're going to get to all of those officers, and they should be terminated because violation of policy is equitable across the board. Mm-hmm. So everybody who violated policy, fire them. Criminal charges are a thing of a very different nature. So you don't want to apply criminal charges just in what I call a willy-nilly kind of way, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that they stick. They got the 5 guys who were slugging and beating and batoning this innocent man. Then you go back and say, let's get the guy who tased him. Let's go back and get the guy who used improper language. Let's go get the people who stood around and did absolutely nothing. Second thing, there's something about our biases, Chip, and we have to deal with this, that when we saw this, many people saw this, and some people admitted it, they wanted to think this occurred at the hands of a person who was not Black. Reality of it was, when we found out that one of the officers possibly was not Black, there was this rush to, why wasn't the white person arrested? But if the white person wasn't there slugging and beating, it wasn't necessary for them to be arrested at that moment, but it is necessary for them to stand charges for their lack of transparency and their participation in this crime. You don't want to lose your case on trying to get the people who actually committed the crime because you're going after someone who was standing by.
The word culture is been very pronounced here lately in terms of how we move forward. So I'll ask you, how do we move forward from this?
Well, it's got to be a pattern of trust. And and let me be clear, it has to be a pattern of trust across all branches of law enforcement, against even government and everyone. Transparency is a word that we often throw around, but here's what I want to share with you. If you were talking about a relationship, if you're talking about transparency, it's the quality of communication that we give to one another and that we bring forth without trying to peel back the layers of the onion and pry it out. Mm-hmm. Investigation will reveal certain things, but it brings about frustration. So remember that. If I got to keep digging and asking you, what happened? Were you there between 6 and 8? And you look at your clock and say, well, no, I was there at 8:05. So, you say, no, I wasn't there between 6 and 8. Well, the real question is, were you there? And so transparency will say, I was there. We had a situation where I was a little concerned even about the sheriffs. If they were there and Sheriff Bonner didn't know about it, what kind of transparency is that? Did they go and say to Sheriff Bonner, hey, Sheriff Bonner, I am here. I was there. I need to tell you this. That's transparency. Mm-hmm. We didn't get that. And people have to even self-report in transparency, even if it means I'm saying, listen, I didn't do anything, but I was on the scene and I need to let you know that much. We need to be able to trust law enforcement. And if you want the community to trust law enforcement, there has to be some transparency and some forthcoming on their part. And the culture can't support that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Scorpion unit, OCU unit, was quickly disbanded. I'm pretty sure you feel that was a good move. Final question: how do we prevent internally things like this from happening again? I heard one of the city councilmen say we don't want them to reinvent another unit that does the same thing but by a different name.
So, Chip, let's be honest. We have crime in our city, and you need specialized units for investigative and intelligence gathering purposes to make sure that they are tracking some specifics. You're going to need, when you have I-55 running through our city and you got 240 running around and I-40 running through, you're going to need drug units that know how to trace, track, and hear information from other states and cities and specialize in stopping those people from bringing drugs into our city and so forth. That's a specialized unit that has special training. They have dogs who can help with that. Sure. And then they know how to look for these particular things. What they cannot do is have a separate culture that allows them to treat people or handle people in such a way that they feel as if they are above the law. We have to deal with them within the framework of the law and deal with them as human beings and respectfully. What we saw in this case was clearly a situation where something went awry and something was terribly bad. It had nothing to do with law enforcement because there was no law broken to enforce.
Very strong words there, very true words as well. We will continue to keep a very close eye on this investigation as it moves forward. Pastor Keith Norman, so happy that you gave us a few minutes tonight and some of your thoughts and some of your opinions as we move forward. Really appreciate you as always. And I don't need to say it. We will continue, and we need your voice, and we need voices like yours to keep us on the right track. So thank you again for joining me tonight and joining our audience here on Real Talk Memphis. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate the opportunity.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Pastor, warm out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Pastor Keith Norman, ladies and gentlemen, some great points made in a situation that continues to unfold, and continues to unwind. We are all still in a state of grief and mourning, I think, in reference to what happened to Tyreek Nichols. And we will continue to watch very closely as this investigation unfolds. We'll take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to shift gears and talk to a radio personality legend in our city who was recently bestowed a very big honor. This is Real Talk Memphis for this Monday evening. I'm Chip. You know who you are. We'll be right back.
If you like Real Talk, here's a way you can get involved. Do you have a show topic idea or suggestion? Want to be considered a guest or have a guest idea? Then send Chip a message on his Real Talk show page and you can be a part of the Real Talk experience. So as he always says, go out and tell somebody. We'll be right back.
WYXR is supported by the On Stage at the Halloran Center 2022-2023 season, which continues in downtown Memphis. Experience live entertainment with music, magic, and more, including the return of Orchestra Unplugged and the Songwriter Series events. More information and the full lineup at orpheum-memphis.com/onstage.
You're listening, but are you in the know? The WYXR weekly newsletter is the best source for keeping up with events at WYXR. Whether they are happening on our airwaves, behind the scenes, or out in the community. Log on to newsletter.wyxr.org to sign up for our mailing list and keep yourself in the loop.
At WYXR, we are committed to uplifting local organizations and businesses who are making an impact in Memphis. If you are looking for ways to spread the word about your business on air and want to support WYXR at the same time, email us at sponsorships@wyxr.org.
Can't find your radio? Maybe you're out of town and missing that Memphis feeling? WYXR can go with you wherever you travel with our mobile app for Android and Apple. Listen live or explore our archive and keep up to date with notifications. Download in your mobile app store by searching WYXR Radio app or visit wyxr.org for more information.
Get Real Talk on the TuneIn mobile app under WYXR, and he's now streaming live on Facebook. And you can also catch a rebroadcast on YouTube. Just put WYXR in the search box and hit subscribe. Now back to more Real Talk with Chip Washington.
And there you go. Welcome back to Real Talk Memphis for a chilly Monday evening. Chip here, very happy to have you with us and very happy to have my next guest with us. Now, you know, many of us know who she is. I will say that she doesn't do many interviews, so I'm glad she didn't make me beg too long to be able to get her on the show tonight. But she is, by way of intro, she's the current program director for 95.7 Hallelujah FM. She is a two-time Stellar Award winner for Announcer of the Year. The station itself is a three-time winner for Radio Station of the Year. And she was recently named as the first female program director at WDIA, the legendary station here in town. She is Tracy Bethea. And Tracy, it's good to see you, my friend, and I'm so happy that you made time to be with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chip, for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, you know, this recent announcement by the iHeartRadio Group in naming you the first female ever to be the program director at the legendary WDIA, very fitting for you as a tribute to your mentor, Bobby O.J. Tell me about that.
Yes, it was quite a shock, to be exact. I didn't expect it. I love what I do, and that is radio, and I was very content being the program director of Hallelujah FM. But all of my training definitely came under Bobby O.J. when I started back in 1987. And I was just doing me, learning. I was gifted to be able to learn from some of the greats of WDIA, from the Fred Moores and the Mike Jeffries and the Herb the Kays and the, J. Michael Davis. It just goes on and on. Bev Johnson, of course. Mm-hmm. And so when the time came, May 3rd, when the unfortunate and untimely death of Bobby O.J., which was just devastating to all of us. Sure. And people I'm still trying to deal with that.
Sure.
We do what we do. You help out. And so the next thing I know, they offered me the position. And with prayer, I took it because I love the station. I started there. It's heritage. And my heart is that the station will continue to do what it's always done since 1947. And that is to be the goodwill and good time station of the Mid-South and beyond.
Absolutely that. And, I couldn't think of a better person to do this. You have been in radio for quite a long time. I'm not trying to age you. I know you're only like, I don't know, you're only like 30, but you've been in the business over 3 decades. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's when you do the work and when you do what you love, time goes by. And to say that decades, that's just amazing to me. To say that I'm a part of history now as the first Black female of WDIA, that's because I still feel young. And again, you just do the work. But yeah, it's been that long.
Well, let me tell you, you still feel young, but I'm old, and I feel old too.
You look good, Chip. You look great.
Okay, fine. But I appreciate that. But back to doing what you love, because I love what I'm doing here. But you mentioned just a very few of some of the extraordinarily legendary people that passed through the doors of WDIA. And of course, Bobby was there going on 4 decades. He was there almost 40 years. And he had this program director thing down pretty good. You and I were talking offline. You said everything he did from his head. Now you're having to learn a little bit about all this, don't you?
Absolutely. Bobby was a genius. Again, when you love what you do, you put your passion into it. And that's one thing that I learned from Bobby OJ is integrity and work. And you step up to the plate and you do the work. But he was a phenomenal program director as far as the music was concerned. It was a feel-good and still is a feel-good station. But we also played the songs, and the station was the culture of our station as well. When something wasn't right, uncivil rest, we had the music from the Stevie Wonders and, those old people to play to temper the heart of our listeners, as well as say, listen, we've got to do something. The James Brown. So we were beyond just a radio station. We were family, and still our family to these people that we would reach each and every day.
Mm-hmm. In terms of what you do on Hallelujah FM, each and every day, you take us through the afternoon and into the evening, drive time, and it is very clear that you love and enjoy what you do so much. Tell me what it feels like, or what it means to be recognized. As I mentioned in the intro, you've won a Stellar Award, which is, I would say, the Academy Award of Gospel Music. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that, but that is an extraordinarily high honor, and the station has been honored as Station of the Year, as I mentioned a few times as well. What does that mean to you? Not necessarily as a program director, but just someone who works at this station, who so many people listen to on a daily basis for their inspiration, which we really need these days.
It means legacy to me, and I don't do it. I never did it for the awards. To have people come up to me now and ask for my autograph while I'm in Kroger or, in the mall, it's funny to me because you don't do it for that. I grew up in the house listening to WDIA. I love music. So, it feels good, but it also carries great responsibility as well, because, I represent, and, I think when I think of the Martha Jean Queens and the Bev Johnson's shoulders that I stand on, now I have to carry that on because they're younger people, that are coming up, particularly females, because you do know, Chip, this is still a male-dominated genre, but there are women that are coming into this industry, and they're moving up in the ranks of the entertainment world and radio, beyond just radio personalities, which is wonderful. But to be in management and upper management, that's a wonderful thing. And I'm excited about it. I really am. I don't think everything has sunk in yet because, again, you just do the work.
So one quick question about your legacy in radio. You started out at WDIA, but what made you enter the world of gospel music?
Fun story.
Okay.
At WDIA, I started in the newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, and in college at UT Martin, my major was journalism. So I really wanted to get behind the scenes in TV.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got into DIA in the newsroom, Bobby, we walking down the hall, and sometimes they need the person to come and do a quick little drop. And he said, come in here and say this. He says, say AM 1070 WDIA. And so I said, AM 1070 WDIA. And he said, I'm going to use that as a drop. And I'm like, okay. And I was never forget, I was on I was on Reigns and Elvis Presley. And that's when I heard the drop for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? I think I could do this.
Okay, then.
And so I kind of started shadowing Bobby. And one day he told me to listen to Linda Morgan, who was actually doing gospel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Linda was leaving DIA to go to WLOK. And so a position became available, and I had the opportunity. He said, start listening to gospel. And so that's how I started working overnights. But from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., I was doing love songs. And then from 3 until 6, I was doing gospel.
Interesting.
And from there, we moved to AM 990, The Light.
Yeah. Interesting transition. That is a great story. Well, listen, I couldn't be any more proud of you, as well as so many people out there who are fans of yours. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it very clearly so everybody can hear me and understand. It's not a matter of if, but I'm so anxious to celebrate when you are inducted into the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame, because it's coming, my friend. Absolutely bet on that. And I'm so proud of you, and congratulations, for everything that you do for all of us on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Chip. I really appreciate that. It's a blessing to be able to just touch people. And, right now, our city, our world needs to be touched. And to be able to do it with the medium of music, I just get excited about it, because something about music brings people together. It truly does. And so I'm honored.
Well, my friend, once again, thank you for taking some time out to come and visit with us and all your fans out there tonight. There's so many people on this Facebook Live line. I can't even count all of them. But anyway, congratulations again. Best of luck to you. And, you are always welcome on this show again. And we love you, Tracy Bethea. Thank you for taking some time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chip. And if I may, real quick.
Certainly.
Those that may have had a chance to listen to WDIA, check us out on our station, if you don't mind, at mywdia.com. And we've got a new lineup, and I think you may like it.
That's what radio pros do. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you, sweetheart. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.
So that was a great show, ladies and gentlemen. Tracy Bethea, the great Tracy Bethea, new program director at WDIA. Yeah, give her a listen. As she says, I have, and they sound absolutely great. So as we wrap up this show, I hope that you enjoyed the content and the conversation tonight. As I said at the outset, I dedicated this program to the memory of Tyree Nichols. And listen, we can't make change, unless we let our voices be heard. And the protests that are happening here and elsewhere around the country are peaceful in nature, but your voices are very strong and they are being heard. So as Bryn plays this out, I want to remind you that in just a couple of minutes, we have a live Talk in Memphis tonight with a local group that is actually going to be here in studio. So we're about to clear out of here so they can do their thing tonight. But listen, thank you again for watching, listening, or however you get us. If you like what we do, please tell somebody about it. Tell them to follow Real Talk Memphis. You know, we come here every week with the intent of trying to provide information and entertainment to you as well. So for Nicole, for Lola, and for Bryn, I'm Chip. Thank you for being with us. We hope that you will join us again next week. Same time, same chair. We'll try to do it just a little bit better. I'm out. Have a great week.